The Checkpoints is presented by pharmaceutical company GM Pharma.
Politics should be kept as far away from business as possible. Both should jointly develop the country, but independently as much as possible. This is also one of the European rules. The president of Georgia, Salome Zurabishvili, said during a meeting with representatives of small and medium-sized businesses in Orbeliani Palace. As the president noted, the more independence and freedom there is, the better business will develop. The Parliament has approved an amendment to the law on entrepreneurs in the third reading, garnering support from 82 votes. This draft law underwent accelerated consideration, including both the second and third readings. Under the provisions of this draft law, enterprises registered prior to January 1st, 2022 will be given the opportunity to align their registration data with the requirements outlined in this law until April 1st, 2025. To achieve this, such enterprises must submit a decision from their founders as per the procedures specified in the last charter of the enterprise registered before January 1st, 2022, and in accordance with the established quorum requirements for general meeting decisions. Transitional provisions related to extending the prescribed deadline have also been incorporated into the law. Ekaterina Mikhabadze and Ekaterina Galdava have been appointed as vice presidents of the National Bank of Georgia, the bank's press office stated on Thursday. Ekaterina Mikhabadze served as Georgia's first deputy minister of economy and sustainable development before joining the board. She formerly worked for several years in the NBG's Department of Macroeconomics and Statistics. Ekaterina Galdava has worked for the National Bank of Georgia for many years. She worked in the Department of Macroeconomic Policy and Monetary Operations. She was an economic consultant to the NBG president and the NBG vice president. The National Bank's board of directors currently consists of 6 members. Tbilisi hosts the 22nd ministerial meeting of the Central Asia Regional Economic Cooperation Program, CAREC. The annual event serves as CAREC's high-level strategy development and policy body. As Asia and Pacific Climate Bank, ADB strongly supports CAREC members, including Georgia, in their collective action on climate change, mitigation and adaptation. Matsasugu Asakawa, president of the Asian Development Bank, addressed the ministerial meeting of the Central Asia Regional Economic Cooperation Program, CAREC. The international rating agency S&P Global Ratings has published a review of the risk assessment of the banking sector, containing the analysis of the current trends, strengths and weaknesses, key challenges and macroeconomic risks of the banking sectors. According to the report, Georgia has retained its current score of 7 points and remains one of the highest ratings compared to the countries of the region. S&P's rating covers 6 categories, including economic stability, economic imbalances, lending risk to the economy, and more. In terms of the economic imbalance criterion, the position of the banking system of Georgia has improved compared to the previous year, and the assessment has been improved from high risk to intermediate risk. The report also assesses the strengths and challenges of the banking sector. The stability of the financial sector is the strength of the Georgian banking industry, supported by the macroeconomic environment reflected in the level of capitalization and liquidity, as well as profitability and low credit losses. This is The Checkpoints. I'm Elena Kvantilashvili, author and the host of the show, and the Checkpoints team is ready to sum up Business and Economics Week for you. We will start with Business and Danuka Jokhadze's interview with Paul Haywood, CEO of Block Energy, led by a management team with unrivaled experience in the Caucasus. Block Energy's development program currently focuses on 3 licenses close to Tbilisi, including 100% working interest in the highly prospective West Rustavi field. In November 2020, Block Energy acquired 2 neighboring blocks from Schlumberger, Block 11B, and the most productive in Georgia, and prospective Block 9. This transformational acquisition is a major milestone towards Block Energy's objective of becoming the country's leading independent producer.
First of all, thank you for your time, for the interview. We can start talking about your company, about Block Energy. What can you say about ongoing projects, and what are main areas you are working nowadays? And I want to ask you about the investment amount, because as I remember, you have started operating on Georgian market at 2018. So what is the total amount of investment you have done in Georgia?
Well, first and foremost, thank you for attending our operating base out here in Nilo. It's a pleasure to have you here, and thank you for taking the time to discuss the business. We were formally established as an operator in Georgia 2018, and since that time we've been building a range of positions in various different licenses in and around the Tbilisi area. So the company is now holds a working interest in 5 production sharing contracts, with our main focus currently being in the 11F area, which is West Rustavi area. We also have an additional project, which is a material gas project, which I'll elaborate on later in this discussion, in the 11B area, which is the Samguri Patazuli area. So to answer one of your critical questions, and that's what sort of investment have we made in the country to date, I think we're a public company, our accounts are there for everybody to see, but I think the investment to date is in and around the $30 million mark since 2018, and that has accelerated significantly since 2020. In 2020 we made an acquisition from a neighbouring operator at the time, a contracting party, Schlumberger, which is one of the world's largest service companies. They were owners of the Block 11B and Block 9 area, which we now own as Block Energy. We have 100% working interest, and we're the operator of those areas. But since completing that acquisition, fulfilling our post-acquisition implementation plan, building the team, and working up the respective work programs associated with those assets acquired, we've consequently defined a reasonably aggressive appraisal and development program, which again, of course, requires accelerating investment on our part. So I think that answers your question.
Tell us more about amount of extracted oil and gas, because you are operating on Georgian market 6 years. Can you tell us numbers separately, just for oil and for gas also?
Since the mid-late 90s, moving into 2000s, the industry here has been somewhat, I wouldn't say starved, but it's been somewhat neglected. It requires continuous investment, and without continuous investment, particularly given the geological setting here in Georgia, you will experience a rapid decline in production. There's huge potential here in Georgia, which is one of the reasons Block Energy is here, of course. But what it requires is investment. And it requires, support from the service industry to enable active companies like Block Energy, who are one of the most active operators in country. We've over the past several years, we've been by far the most active driller here, chasing those resources that I've just outlined. But essentially, I think the oil resources here in country are significant. You're beyond multi-billion barrel potential, which is again significant. The gas potential here is also extremely significant. You're looking at multi-trillion cubic feet potential just throughout our licenses alone, part of which was appraised by the previous asset owner. If you slowed the development of the industry down to date is the fact that historically there have been core areas throughout both basins that have been owned and held by separate contracting parties and have somewhat fragmented these larger plays that typically your mid-size and large oil companies would be chasing. So we see a consolidation of licenses happening here in Georgia, which will in essence allow contracting parties to capture the entirety of these significant plays, which can then be promoted and marketed towards larger companies that are interested in chasing these larger plays.
We know financial numbers of your company about last year, but we want to update this data for 2023. What is like total amount of extracted like gas and oil?
So, from an extractive perspective, we have produced around 500,000 barrels of oil to date. As we've been moving through our acquisition phase, integration phase, etc., etc. But more broadly, the key focus for the company, if you like, the jewel in the crown within the portfolio to date, is absolutely the contingent gas resources that sit across both of our 11B and 11F permits. And I know, state departments have been very vocal on the fact that the discoveries that have been made throughout the permits in which are held by Block Energy are significant. The size of resources are significant, have consequently been defined of strategic interest to the state of Georgia, and are believed to contribute, or could well contribute, to a key state policy, and that's energy security, which has become a very important subject for the region, of course.
We have talked about Georgia's potential, but I want to ask you, what do you think? Does this potential meets your expectations? And what information do you have about supplies in our country?
Yeah, well, essentially, a large part of the country's energy demand is satisfied by hydrocarbons, both oil and gas. And we have been a contributor to domestic requirements or demand since inception. We sell our oil and gas here domestically. We are a contributor to the energy demands here in Georgia. And I think by and large, the majority of energy demands, certainly with regard to hydrocarbon demand, is sourced from external countries. So I think beyond 90% of Georgia's gas requirements come from the east, as to do its crude supplies and requirements. So essentially, I think, a successful development plan for Block Energy, and as we've always outlined as part of our overall mission, has been to become, the most prominent, largest energy supplier to Georgia, developing domestic resources to supply domestic demand.
We often talk in our country about energy independence. We talked about the resources we have, about potential we have, but is it enough? What do you think, to be not import-dependent country, and what should we do in this direction?
Anything else that could be done, it would be building the awareness that Georgia is a fantastic place to invest. The opportunity here is significant, and essentially it comes down to packaging and marketing. So people, individuals, companies, funds, investors are aware of, the standout opportunity relative to the rest of the region that is apparent here in Georgia. And I do believe, and I personally notice it when I'm moving around the world and talking about Georgia to certainly the Western investment community, there is still an educational process required there. It's the understanding of the ease in which you can advance business in Georgia is not quite known.
In your licensed area was found supply of gas. We want to hear from you more about this project, more about ongoing processes, and what are you doing now on this licensed area?
The internal verification process has now been completed. We're running a third-party audit process now with an independent resource and reserve auditor in the UK. When that work completes, which we hope will happen sometime, all things being well, before Christmas, your Christmas, not ours, we go and speak to many businesses like ours, far larger, explain the opportunity with state, of course, and try to entice third parties in to join us on that wonderful journey that will be developing that significant resource.
You have mentioned before that it is not simply an easy working process on this licensed area, and you have to make their horizontal drilling. Can you tell us a period when we can see real results from this project?
Essentially, drilling will entail drilling a 4.5 to 5,000 metre hole down to what is deemed the lower Eocene. And then we will seek to drill a 1,000 metre horizontal section. So you land vertical and you drill your horizontal section across the reservoir. And that will be, a critical event that will go towards de-risking what is currently the 16 BCM that had previously been defined. The key question there is, when do we start to drill? And that will fall out of the process that we're going to be running early next year. The conventional approach, would be a working process, as you've defined it, an active marketing campaign to other companies around the region, which will run for somewhere between 3 to 6 months.
How successful was this year for Block Energy? And also, I want to ask you about future plans for 2024. What are you planning?
To date, our focus has been on drilling wells, producing more oil, and incrementally building our overall production base. But now I think, given the potential we've got in the gas project, which is our Project 3, and what has just been verified internally, it's our responsibility as directors of a public company to obviously, focus on high impact events that provide the best chance of adding significant value for our shareholders and all of our stakeholders, whilst delivering on our mission, and that's, becoming the leading supply of energy to Georgia. Are we looking at any new projects? I mean, more recently, we've established a joint venture with a local Georgian company that is currently the largest acreage owner in Georgia. I think collectively, if you combine our license areas, we make up around 10 to 15% of the entire country under license. We've defined that project with our partners at Georgian Oil and Gas Limited, again, which is a local company here, and a major contributor to the industry, as Project 4. The partnership with Georgian Oil and Gas, also complemented by the corporation, the Oil and Gas Corporation, which is a state department, for the first time since the incorporation of production sharing contracts, at least provides the pathway to unifying a significant area which captures massive potential, which we believe, once unified under a single license with all parties aligned in one strategic goal, would complement bringing in major regional players to developing a significant opportunity. Provisional numbers on our gas project carries a project value of somewhere between $1 to $1.5 billion. Investment in that project is in a ballpark of around, and this is phased over a range of different development programs, of somewhere between $150 to $200 million. So that's the gas project. And Project 4 with our partners of Georgian Oil and Gas, that's a multi-billion barrel opportunity there. Again, project values in excess of $1 billion when combined. And again, overall investment north of $300 to $400 million.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time and for the interesting interview.
My pleasure. Thank you for the questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
More news from business this week on Natia Taktakishvili.
Hotel Paragraph Tbilisi has opened in Georgia, which will start operating under the Marriott International brand. The luxury collection brand is the highest category brand of Marriott International, which implies the highest standards in terms of comfort, design, quality, and services. Paragraph Tbilisi offers its guests 220 rooms of the highest category with panoramic views of Tbilisi, whereas restaurants offering European dishes to the customers as well as national culinary. A spa center located on the third floor. In the spa center, guests will find indoor and outdoor pools, different types of saunas, fitness and yoga rooms, 5 multifunctional treatment rooms with individual terraces. The hotel has multifunctional conference spaces. The French company Hut Design Paris worked on the design of the Paragraph Tbilisi hotel. The interior of the hotel is inspired with Georgia's rich heritage and history. The total investment of Paragraph Tbilisi amounts to $150 million USD, where 450 people are employed. The bakery chain Entre continues to expand in the British market, and on November 2022, the company opened its first branch in Kensington, London. Lika Mikautadze, head of company's marketing communications service, told BMWG about this. Kensington is one of the oldest districts in the center of London, with many business and residential buildings. We are very happy that the London customers already like Entre and are waiting for it to open in a new location, said Lika Mikautadze. According to the head of the company's marketing communications service, 300,000 Great British pounds were invested this time to expand the network. Entre Tbilisi Bakery in London currently employs 8 people in the mentioned facility. Mikautadze declares that Entre will continue to expand its network in 2024 and plans to open 2 facilities in London. Entre currently operates in 3 countries with 14 facilities in Tbilisi, 7 facilities in Baku and 4 facilities in London. Arki will build a multifunctional residential complex in America. The Arki Miami project is being built in partnership with the American development company Elite Group in Florida, 30 minutes away from Miami Beach. The total investment amounts to $50 million USD. Arki Miami will be a modern industrial-style residential house which will be built in an urban area in a healthy environment. The project will include 97 apartments, a pool, co-working spaces, a lounge, a golf course, indoor-outdoor fitness centers and 129 parking lots. Of course, we will continue our activities in Georgia. We also plan to build projects in different regions. However, due to our scale, we will go beyond the borders of Georgia and start construction in America. We believe that with the right priorities, we will meet the expectations of the American customers and offer them a high-level project and best services, the founder of Arki, Ilya Tsulaya, said. The company declares that the approval of the construction project in America consists of several stages. Arki Miami is already in the final stage. The construction of the project will be completed by 2026. Arki Miami complex will be rental property. Arki is a leading development company that combines more than 60 completed and ongoing projects in Tbilisi, Batumi and Bakuriani. The number of Arki residents exceeds 30,000 people. A new luxury multi-brand store, Boygars, is opening in the historic building located on Rustaveli Avenue 15 in Tbilisi, according to the company's website. Its founders are the representatives of the Avsajanishvili family, Boygar, Khatulya and Timur Avsajanishvili, who own a high-class multi-brand store in Russian Federation. Their Russia-based company Babochka combines high-class stores located in St. Petersburg. The company is a retailer of Fendi, Balmain, Miu Miu, Valentino, Armani, Manolo Blahnik and other brands. According to the business register, the owner and director of the company is Svetlana Avsajanishvili, who has dual citizenship of Georgia and Russia. According to the business register, the authorized capital of the company is 1.3 million lari. Boygars currently has vacancies for the position of sales consultant, e-commerce manager and the head of communications. Chelti started production of new premium wine collection Heritage in November. Anna Mirianashvili, commercial director of Chelti, talked about the new premium wine with TV program Women's Narrative. Chelti's new premium wine collection Heritage brings together the most outstanding vintage wines. Currently, we have produced Saperavi wines aged in Booze, Qvevri and oak barrels. Each species represented in Heritage collection has received many awards in different countries worldwide, said Anna Mirianashvili. Heritage wines are available in America, Germany, along with Georgia from November. The cost of one bottle starts from 120 lari and reaches 2,000 lari. We wanted to combine our outstanding wines under one line. I think we have produced an unprecedented amount of premium wines, which is up to 150,000 bottles, and this number will increase even more, said the commercial director of Chelti. Chelti has been operating in the market since 2001 and its exporting portfolio includes 27 markets. The company exports occupy 70% share. The rest 30% is sold on the local market, although this number is constantly changing. The Hotel Gudorin has positive expectations regarding the winter tourist season this year, as Nina Kachachiladze, the commercial director of the Hotels Managing Company Inc. Hospitality told BMWG the process of accepting reservations has already started. The process of taking bookings from winter season has already started. We already have about 50% occupancy for the winter holiday. It was noting that compared to the previous year, the number of guests has increased. Therefore, we have positive expectations and we think that this year's season will be fruitful for the business, Nina Gachachiladze added. In addition, the commercial director of the company spoke about the Israel market and noted that their share was about 15-20%. It should be noted that the company had to increase the price this year due to the expensive logistics. Gudauri Inn Hotel has 60 rooms of different categories. The 4-star hotel is located in Gudauri, 50 meters from the center of the town. The hotel also offers free transfer from the hotel to the cable cars and back. Katie Kwichidze, co-founder of Properly, declares that entrepreneurs find it difficult to enter large supermarkets. According to her, it's difficult for both large and small producers to compete with the products produced by supermarkets. We have found more than 30 recipes and we plan to publish a book of recipes in the future. This project was financed by the Properly brand. With the recipes we have found, we have created flavors that have been reflected in Properly brand. So far, we have made 8 flavors and they can be purchased in different chains. We have not expanded much at this point because it's very difficult for entrepreneurs to get into the big chains because all the big chains have their own products. They produce everything themselves, including sugar, pasta and oil. In general, I am not in favor of regulations, but in this case, there should be some kind of regulation so that the business can survive, said Katie Kwichidze. Katie Kwichidze directly participated in the creation of Properly brand. She was personally involved in the finding flavors and creating sauces. Company Georgian Olive, which has olive plantations in Kakheti, Baghdati and Marneuli, plans to replace imported products on the existing market. The founder of the company, Georgi Swanidze, spoke about this during his visit to Business Morning. When we first entered the market, we replaced 12% of imported products. Now we occupy 30% of the local market. The company has the opportunity to increase its share up to 80% in the next 5 years. We opened a large nursery and produced olive seedlings in Georgia, with which perhaps 90-95% of the existing market should be replaced in 10 years, Georgi Swanidze added. In addition to, the founder of the company spoke about the current year's harvest and the popularity of culture in Georgia. According to him, product popularity increases every year. We have a good harvest this year compared to Europe. Our company is growing every year. We plant 120 seedlings every year, so we have already planted 1.2 million seedlings in Georgia, he said. Georgian olive plantations were planted in Georgia 7 years ago by the company Geolov. After planting the gardens, the first Georgian olive processing enterprise was built, which was financed by the state program Enterprise Georgia. The company employs about 200 people at the moment.
On November 30, upon the initiative of the EU-Georgia Business Council, 14 leading business associations made a joint statement on granting EU candidate status to Georgia. In the statement, the associations reaffirmed their support for the European integration process, welcomed the recommendation of the European Commission, and added the voice of businesses in Georgia to the call to grant EU candidate status to Georgia in December. We welcome the European Commission's recent recommendation on granting the EU candidate status to Georgia, reaffirmed the business sector's unequivocal support for Georgia's EU integration, which bears particular importance for long-term stability, prosperity, and development of the country. Acknowledged that the AA, DCFTA, and visa-free travel are key instruments that should be fully utilized in the process of the EU-Georgia rapprochement. Firmly believe that granting the EU candidacy status to Georgia will give a positive signal to other Eastern Partnership countries in the region. At the voice of businesses in Georgia to the call to grant the EU candidacy status to Georgia, and anticipate that the decision of the European Council in December will bring the country to even closer to its ultimate goal, EU membership, the statement noted.
So, on behalf of the German Business Association, we are joining today's ranks with a couple of other associations from the business sector to very clearly demonstrate our full support for Georgia's future path into European Union integration, now taking the first step on receiving the candidate status, which I guess is an important milestone for the development of the country and for a very interesting future prosperous development of the economy. We have been investing a lot of efforts into the past years, the entire society, the business society, the entire part of the economy, and now I hope that we're gonna take and harvest the relevant fruits of it.
CBS News, the news division of the American television and radio service, on Sunday released a 20-minute documentary on winemakers restoring ancient grape varieties in Georgia in its program 60 Minutes. The production showcases promoters and protectors of ancient Georgian wines and opens with footage of the capital city of Tbilisi before highlighting the eastern winemaking region of Kakheti. The Network Readiness Index, NRI, is one of the leading global indices on the application and impact of information and communication technology, ICT, in economies around the world. In its latest version of 2023, the NRI report maps the network-based readiness landscape of 134 economies based on their performances in 4 different pillars: technology, people, governance, and impact. Each of these pillars is in itself composed of 3 sub-pillars that have been populated by a total of 58 variables. Georgia ranks 78th out of the 134 economies included in the NRI 2023. Its main strength relates to governance. The greatest scope for improvement, meanwhile, concerns impact. When it comes to sub-pillars, the strongest showings of Georgia relate to individuals, access and content, among others. More could be done, though, to improve the economy's performances in the SDG contribution, economy, and future technologies sub-pillars. GDP per capita trend line shows the expected NRI score given an economy's income level. Georgia is well below the trend line, which suggests that it is underachieving and that one would expect it could raise its network readiness in view of its income level. Georgia is ranked 24th in the group of upper middle income countries. In terms of pillar performance, it has a score higher than the income group average in one of the 4 pillars, people. At the sub-pillar level, it outperforms upper middle income countries in 5 of the 12 sub-pillars: access, content, individuals, trust, and quality of life. Georgia is ranked 39th within Europe. It lags behind its region in each of the 4 pillars. Regarding sub-pillars, it outperforms the average in Europe in one of the 12 sub-pillars, individuals. The indicators where Georgia performs particularly well include internet access in schools, adult literacy rate, and population covered by at least a 3G mobile network. By contrast, the economy's weakest indicators include sustainable cities and communities, e-commerce legislation, and annual investment in telecommunication services. What are some global trends in NRI? Here is our short interview with one of the founders of the index, Rafael Escalona Reynoso. Mr. Reynoso, thank you for being with us and taking our questions. My first question will be about the digital readiness and why is it important to track, in general, digital readiness?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. This is a very important topic for various reasons. The importance of tracking digital readiness allows an economy and a region to understand a little bit better where they stand when it comes to the adoption and the use of technology, which gives you a little bit of a background of how your infrastructure and the use of that infrastructure and the applications of technology and how all of these things together become one single entity that allows the development of a nation from the perspective of from an economics perspective, and allows for a better projection of growth. So it's an important tool that needs to be measured, to be understood, and to be programmed. So I think this is one of the important elements of innovation and one of the important elements of development in the current era.
How does Index do this job over the years, and why this tracking and this time perspective is important?
Yes, the importance of measuring is that anything that you can't measure, you cannot control. So although the imperfection of any measurement within science is something that we have to take into account, using a tool like an index allows you to have different factors built into one single element, in one single indicator, that will give you, let's say, a rough picture of what is the state of technology in this case, of again a region or a particular economy, and it gives you more options to, as I mentioned in the beginning, to measure things and to program them in the future. So I think this is how we see the indices working. And what we do with the indices is that these different elements that compose the index itself, the composite indicator, allows us to pinpoint specific areas of good development and areas of opportunity. And I think that is the importance of measuring and developing this type of instruments.
How would you summarize the main trends globally? What does the newest index tell us?
Yes, this is very interesting finding that we see this year. This is something that has been, developing over the several years that we've been doing this research. We find that certain economies in areas like Southeast Asia are doing very well with the use of technology and with the use of some of these new tools. But we also find that they don't perform as well in other areas that have to do with the application and, let's say, the more social aspects of this technology. So this is why, even though they have enormous capacity to be ahead of their curve and in the usage of this technology, we see other economies like those in the West, like the United States, for example, or some of them in Europe, and even in Western Europe, that are developing a little bit better performance as measured by the index, because they introduce the social aspects and this use of technology affecting and reflected in society in a more cohesive way. And this gives this notion that it's not only about technology, but it's also about the usage, and it's also about how that use of technology brings betterment to societies. And this is one of the main findings, and the one that I want to express the most from this year's report.
Yes, you focused on East and West, but do developed and developing countries differ in the quality and in the pace of absorbing these technologies and these trends?
Absolutely. That's another thing that we found, and we found this over the years, that many economies that are using this type of that base their growth also in technology and in digital readiness, we find that not necessarily these economies have to be in the higher tiers of income. So we find that economies in Africa or in Asia Pacific, without removing the big juggernauts like China and Japan, we find that some economies in developing, let's say emerging economies, are becoming more and more aware of the need for these technologies, and they're focusing not only in the aspects of adapting their infrastructure, but also in developing more areas related to governance, to people, and eventually to the impact that these technologies have. And what this eventually creates is that some of these economies stand out as being high performers in technology readiness, as opposed to some other more developed economies that by nature and by, of course, resources become automatically some of the big performers. So we see this contrast between these two areas. Some economies, Yes, go ahead.
Yes, sorry to interrupt you, but who is the main driver? Can we talk a little bit about that? Is it a bottom-up process where the main player is, for example, the private sector, its readiness, its quality, human capital, its readiness to absorb this technology, or is it more top-down process where, for example, state, like legal base, like these kinds of factors play the decisive role in development?
That is a great question. In reality, and throughout our experience, it is a mix of things. And also we come to the realization that not every model fits everyone. So it really depends on the economy, it really depends on the background. But it is a role of every player within a particular area. We do notice that when the private sector and the public sector have a certain disconnection, the outcome becomes a little bit more complex, and that obviously can trickle down to results. So it's very important to understand that the linkage between all the productive sectors and the public sector is something that is key for the development of this type of study. I mean, for this type of technologies and the adoption of it. But I cannot really pinpoint a specific actor, but I can pinpoint this fact that each of them have a very specific role, and if any of these is missing, then you can obviously tell that there's this linkage, there's this echelon that's missing from the linkage of this readiness in technology development.
So do you think it makes sense for the countries, especially for the countries where there are other pressing needs, some social needs, to still invest in technologies together with the private sector?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question as well. Yes, I think this is extremely important. It's oftentimes it can get a little confusing to think that investment in technology is a luxury, but it has to be seen on the contrary as a tool that eventually will help the development of all echelons of income within a particular region or a particular economy. The reason why is because from our experience and throughout the history of economics and economic development, technology helps as a tool to increase productivity. So by doing so, investment in this type of technologies, by definition, is something that will be a benefit, will create a benefit for society at any level. It really depends also on the access that the technology has. But if we're talking about technologies like, for example, the ones we've seen from the late 20th century and the beginning of this one, for example, the phone and the internet, those are technologies that eventually are very easy to access, and those technologies have changed substantially the way markets are created and the way that the productivity of a nation or the productivity of a whole region is improved. And this also goes down into the individual. So somebody that knows how to use this technology does not need to be either at a development level or a high income level. Also, your question says, what about the private sector? Of course, the private sector can help doing this as an investment, will eventually help develop this type of opportunities within a particular region. And their role, as mentioned in the previous question, rather the answer, is something that is extremely important to consider when taking into account the importance of investments in new technology and readiness in this kind of
Thank you, Mr. Reynoso, for very interesting answers, and thank you again for your time. And that's all for today. Follow us on BM.G for more updates and outlooks. We'll meet each other next Sunday, 11 a.m. sharp on BMG TV.
The Checkpoints is presented by pharmaceutical company GM Pharma.